at Aspen and its relationship to the Olympic Games, since it's an Olympic year. Aspen to the Olympics, our legacy of youth sports. So I went back this week and I looked at the Olympic Creed, and I'm going to put my glasses on and read that, which is the most important thing in the Olympic Games is not to win, but to take part. Just as the most important thing in life is not the triumph, but the struggle. The essential thing is not to have conquered, but to have fought well. Now there's some sort of old school and slightly militaristic terminology in that, but I think the point is well made. Just creating an environment where these athletes, our young athletes, can prosper and learn and get better. And in my conversation with Elise the other day, she said, yeah, we want to produce winners, but we also want every child who comes through those programs, every youth athlete that takes part to learn something. And sometimes one of the most important things to learn is to fail, which is a tough thing to sort of, digest, but learning how to not necessarily be the best or the best on any given day and then get back up and try the next time is a big part of what we do here. So I'm going to give a really quick history, very brief, of the Aspen Valley Ski Club. Most of you probably know at least as much as I do about it, but what I like to emphasize is that the whole part of this is the community of Aspen and what these programs contribute to our sense of who we are as a group of human beings, living together and sharing this amazing environment that we share. And part of the amazing thing for me is that 3 of these panelists were born here. So that to me is part of the whole story. So originally the Roaring Fork Winter Sports Club was founded in 1937. Andre Roche was a big part of that. That eventually morphed into the Aspen Valley Ski and Snowboard Club. That 80-year history is pretty interesting. When you look at the presidents of the board of directors of the Aspen Valley Ski Club, it's like a who's who of who's been here in Aspen. From the Willoughby brothers, Friedel Pfeiffer at one point, Darcy Brown, Dave's dad, Dave Stapleton Sr., just an amazing list, Lefty Brinkman, of all the people that we've seen as prominent folks in our history over the years, and that has helped tie that organization to the group. Dick Durrance was part of the early skiing in Aspen, a 2-time Olympian himself. A lot of Europeans like Friedel Pfeiffer, Fred Iselin, eventually Stein Eriksen. All these people helped contribute to what the Ski Corporation, the skiing club, and everything that was Aspen came to mean. Skiing in the 1940s was a new economy for Aspen. A town that had languished and dropped to a population of 700 or less in the 1930s found a new reason to exist. And you can imagine what some of them thought, these miners and these farmers, all of a sudden watching these guys speed down the hill and eventually watching the 10th Mountain guys do it and thinking, well, I guess if it's going to make us money, we'll give it a shot. And they started teaching their kids to ski right off the bat. The 1940 U.S. Championships were held here in Aspen. The 1950 World Championships were held here in Aspen. And all that, led to sort of this culture of skiing and a culture of excellence. There are those who feel that the 70s might have been the golden age, at least in terms of alpine skiing. And I'm just going to run down a list of names. Jill Carter, Andy Mill, Ned Gantz, Belinda Brunell, Dave Stapleton, Mark Tache, Mike Farney, Kelly Swales, Whit Sterling, Terry Morse were all on the U.S. team during those years. An incredibly rich time in the skiing history here. One of my favorite stories is in 1976. By the way, there was a chance we were going to have Mike Maple here tonight. He flew in yesterday from South Korea. I'm guessing he's pretty jet lagged, but I left the door open for him to just show up. In 1916, he foreran the downhill course right in front of Franz Klammer. You can imagine being a 16-year-old in Aspen and getting to experience that. Today, the AVSC serves 2,300, approximately. 2,300 youths, making it the largest local winter sports club in the country. 80 years of that history, the core values remain the same: commitment, teamwork, and integrity. With that storied past, AVSC is best celebrated by its athletes, coaches, parents, and administrators, and they've all played an integral role in its success. So, my guests tonight on my left, Elise Black. 15 years with AVSC. Yeah? She grew up ski racing in Romania, eventually became a member of the Romanian junior national team before skiing at New Hampton in New Hampshire. She started coaching after racing for the University of New Hampshire. And she served as the team captain her senior year. And I love these words. She says she loves her job because she's in a position to help teach kids how to rip and be good people. Right? What more is there? And she says it doesn't get much better than that. Next to her, an Aspen native, August Teague. He's an AVSC alum, obviously. And his dad is probably my favorite architect, Harry Teague. The Aspen Music Tent, the Music Festival School. What? He'll get you the money. No, he's already given me the check. Great guy, and hopefully everybody has a chance to meet him sometime. He has a 14-year Nordic coaching history, helping athletes at all levels. Spent 4 years with the Australian ski team, the Nordic team, leading them to 2 World Championships and 1 Olympic cycle. Most recently, he's been in Truckee, California with a junior club, and he's thrilled to be back in Colorado and would be sharing his love of skiing, the sun in his face, and being involved with the AVSC Nordic athletes. We'll skip. We're waiting for Vince Lahey to get her, so we'll skip his seat now. I'll introduce him if he shows up. And next is Dave Stapleton, who another native, son of a long line of Stapletons that go back 130 years. Do you have a list of all of them anywhere? Somebody must. If anybody does, we do, right?
I think you're going to find out soon.
Yeah. Oh, good. Right. Yeah. And your dad, David Sr., played on the first football team at the Red Brick, and then both you and Mark followed up by playing football as well.
We did. Yes.
That's amazing. And by the way, your parents and your uncle and his wife are all in the Aspen Hall of Fame. We're going to expect you to be there someday as well, probably. Yeah. There's something for us too. And I loved your story. He used to walk from the Red Brick up Monarch to the ski club, which is right at the head of the street and on the mountain. And they have all your ski gear and just boom, up you'd go and go right into skiing gates until it got dark, basically. Pretty much.
That's a long way.
You went directly from AVSC to the U.S. Ski team, competed from 1976 to 1981, Alpine Junior Skier of the Year in 1977, NORAM Champ in 1977. And then he had a long and successful run on the pro circuit. He's now the Director of Development for AVSC and pretty much the driving force for creating the Stapleton Training Center on Aspen Highlands, which now has not only a national but international group of racers using the course. So congratulations for that. Next to him, his boyhood friend, they grew up together, Mark Tache, another Aspen native, now also sort of sharing time with Bozeman. Your father, Yvonne, was Aspen's first golf pro. And I don't think I've ever told you this, but I watched you outdrive NBA All-Star David Robinson on the first tee at the Aspen Golf Course as part of a pro-am. You well over 300 yards.
And Greg Norman and Davis Love.
Yeah. Pretty impressive. No, I don't think I've ever told you that story, but I was there watching that day.
And
that was
shorts
really cool.
and t-shirt.
Probably. Also went straight from AVSC to the U.S. ski team. Was slated for the 1984 Winter Games. And at that point, David had been on the pro circuit for about 3 years. And at that point, for that Olympics, basically the bulk of the U.S. team was sort of abandoned in the shadow of the Mayer brothers. And so he did not get to compete. And after the Olympics, just to put you in perspective of the level he was skiing at, the U.S. team placed 5 racers in the top 20 in slalom at Vail, and Mark finished 9th in that race. He's married to Olympian Kristen Cooper, and they're both great supporters of the Aspen Historical Society. Thank you so much for being here. And next to him, Adam Longnecker, who represents our snowboarding team tonight. His connection and influence in snowboarding has been really a big part of snowboarding in Aspen. As a terrain park designer, a snowboard coach to some of the most celebrities in snowboarding, an event organizer, a world traveling board riding adventure guide with his company All Star Trips. Very much a part of the early years of snowboarding, designed and built some of the first terrain parks in Snowmass and in buttermilk. And along with Andy Coughlin, he brought snowboarding into the mix with the AVSC Ski Club in the early 90s. And I was talking to Gretchen Bleiler just yesterday at the top of Aspen Mountain, and she credits Adam not only with being his coach, but being her mentor in the long process of getting to the Olympics. So very glad to have you. So we're going to give them each some time to talk about their story, how they got to Aspen, what attracted them to the sport, maybe what they feel the strong points are of being part of the industry here. And then after everybody's had a chance to speak, we'll take questions from the audience. So I'll pass it over to Elise Black on my left.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having us. It's an honor to be here among some of the grades of Aspen. As Michael said, I did not grow up in Aspen. I moved here right after college from New Hampshire after spending 6 years racing in the rain. I got to Colorado where my then boyfriend, now husband, lived, and I was like, I'm not going to go back. This is it. So if there's one word I would use to define or to describe Aspen to anybody is opportunity. There's so much here that enables us to do what we do and to make it possible for kids to learn how to love the sport of skiing and ski racing. Starting with the mountains that were here since skiing moved to Aspen, to the venues that have been developed for us at Aspen Highlands with with a world-class venue over there and a world-class downhill on Aspen Mountain. We, on a snow year like this year, we've been able to have a downhill venue ready to go since January. So to have that kind of environment here for our kids is amazing. And it all starts really, in my opinion, it all starts at home with the parents. And you guys, the parents, are the ones that bring the kids to the mountains. And they bring them to us, and allow us to work with them and teach them what the sport is all about. So, one of the most crucial aspects of this town to me is the community. And it's not just the skiing, because we have these kids that get to do all these amazing sports when they're young, and they get to develop all these skills, and come and ski with us at such a high level. So that community makes I think AVSC, even though it's a club of 2,300 people, it makes it feel like home for the families, the kids, and the staff. And it makes it easy for kids to keep coming back day after day and love the sport. We do want top-level athletes. That's what we always strive for in sport. We want kids going to the Olympics. But when you look at the numbers and the statistics of what it takes to get there, and how, there's so many variables, especially in alpine skiing, between opportunity, financial, the financial part of the sport. It's very expensive, and you need the genetics. You need the kids to be able to do what you're asking them to do, and most importantly, you need them to have that intrinsic drive that gets them to the top and love what they do, because it's such a long, sport, and you can have a career that can span over 30 years. So in order to keep that longevity, it's crucial that kids love the sport. So for us, we've tried to create this team environment that really, that's one of our core values. So that keeps the kids going, and it keeps them coming back on a cold, windy day, because they're having so much fun with their friends. And they're the ones who want to go out there, and they're asking the coaches, hey, can I go? Can I go yet? Can I go? And it's so cool to see that. Like I said, it starts with the families. And in this valley, especially in the upper half of the valley, there's not a lot of adversity, for kids, for young kids. They're not exposed to a lot of adversity. And there are such crucial life skills that come through adversity that we can provide through the safe atmosphere of sport. And like Michael mentioned, is teaching those kids how to lose and be gracious winners, and learn how to pick themselves up and continue and come back the next day And not only that, but be there for their teammate who actually kicked their butt that day, and be happy for them and learn how to be good kids, you know. And in the long run, our goal is that, you know, we'll have some kids who go to the Olympics and win, and then the rest of the kids that come through our programs love the sport, and maybe we're lucky enough to get them to either come back to us as coaches, working with us at AVSC, or being part of the ski company and working on the mountains as instructors, or, you know, just staying in the sport and being able to continue that love of the sport and pass it on to new generations as part of our club and our community.
Thank you so much. So we'll save any questions for Elise. We'll save till afterwards. Did I read, August, that you wanted to be a basketball player?
These guys want to be football players.
Yeah, they want. Yeah. So
It's an Aspen local thing. That
Yeah.
we grew up
doing it all.
watching something on TV and envisioning one thing, and then realizing that we have world-class mountains either to go up or come down right out our door. And I think that dream morphs through this community.
Exactly. Exciting year Olympic-wise for the Nordic team with both Simi and Noah, and you had a skier like second and third at the Junior Nationals, Haley Swirbel.
Yeah,
right?
junior world championships.
Yeah.
Ellie Swirl, she's,
Just I said national, sorry, World Championships.
she's
Yeah.
currently skiing for the University of Alaska Anchorage, but actually came to Aspen for her pre-camp prior to flying to Europe for that championships and going to Switzerland. And those are the best results we've ever seen from an American skier. So that was really exciting. And tonight we'll watch Simi go for a medal in the team sprint, which is his best opportunity in the team sprint. So that's also pretty exciting.
I'm going to do just one quick thing about Simi, then I'll let you take it
Yeah,
back. So
absolutely.
Simi Hamilton is the daughter, or the son of, the daughter of Darcy Brown Ruth and Skip Hamilton. Darcy Brown is the son of David Robson Crocker Brown, who came up Galena Street in a wagon with his future wife and father-in-law to start Aspen's first store. So we have a direct link between this athlete at the Olympics and basically the founding of Aspen 130 plus years ago. So to me, that's astonishing and so much a part of what knits our community together. So anyway, I wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, thank you for having us. My story is a little different in that I was born here. I won the Gene lottery, or maybe Aspen, I'm just saying. And I was lucky enough to have the opportunity, or at least spoke of growing up in the mountains and getting to ski. I was originally an alpine racer that did cross country on the side, and Mark and Kristen were my coaches growing up. The first pair of Bollé goggles that were neon yellow, Kristen gave me because I showed up to training with some glasses, and it was pumping snow like it was today, and clearly that wasn't going to work, especially with bamboo.
Not so clear.
Bamboo and glasses are not a good combination. But for me, the one word I would use would be community, and Elise touched on that for a moment. But I think that the community is what drove me into skiing and pulled me away from basketball, and ultimately actually pulled me away from alpine. And that it was the community that Nordic provided, the friends that would have hot chocolate and sweat and drool while freezing at the same time, which is what we do in Nordic. It was what brought us together, and it was those relationships in that community that has led to the success of the Willies, to the success of Noah and Sim, now to the success of Haley, and it's also the community that we're striving to create again. Right now we have a program with 20 Latino kids in Carbondale, and the focus of that program is two. One is bringing pockets of the community together. We talked about adversity up valley, down valley. There's also adversity amongst each of those pockets, and really trying to use the club as a mechanism to bring all of our community together and unite it through sport and through skiing and the love of the mountains and our surrounding. And the second opportunity there is that there, and you mentioned it in Credos, the participation factor, and we see it in cross-country skiing all the time, is we have people from Mexico, Honduras, Central America, and if we can teach them to ski at 4 years old, they can not only go to the games, but they can actually go and compete and really represent the sport, not just ski down a half pipe and be there, right?
Right.
And I think that speaks to what the games is, that speaks to what we're trying to accomplish with the club, and that speaks to the community that the AVSC fosters, that the Nordic team, the Alpine team, and all these other things foster, and ultimately why we see athletes make it to the games from this area. You know, the one thing I would challenge us on is yes, it's really exciting. We've gotten a lot of people to the games. You talked about the golden area of the 70s. We're not getting a ton of people to the games now. So how do we bring the community together, create this opportunity, and get even more people to the games? Because I think we can, and I don't think that that's a bad thing to strive for simultaneously.
Can you speak to the cross-country trail system and the facilities? And you know, everybody knows about the mountains, but
Sure.
maybe not everybody gets how extensive our network is here.
I mean, I think the most unique thing about our network is that it's all free.
Yeah.
And it's one of the few places in the world where it's free. In Davos, Switzerland, it's free, but it's actually part of your hotel tax, your bed tax. But most of the places in the world, including most of the places in Colorado, when you go Nordic ski, you have to buy a trail pass. As you mentioned, was in Truckee. Truckee, the cheapest trail pass is $35 a day. So the fact that it's free here and people can go out after work, hit the trails, get a workout in, especially if we're not having a great winter.
It's changed.
It's changed.
Yeah.
Today was the best day I've had in 2 years. But in all honesty, the fact that we have free trails is probably the most unique feature. Is the fact that we are able to use our parks and open space to have a network of trails, not only for the kids, but for everyone to go out and enjoy. And that they've done such a phenomenal job of having trails that you can ride a bike on, trails that you can walk your dog on, and trails that we want you to stay off so that we can train on and are world class. The high school has homologated FISC trails that meet the Olympic standard, and then we have trails that connect Aspen to Basalt with the Rio Grande. I think it speaks for itself.
Snowmaking.
It's a dream. We did make snow this year for the first time in a long time. There was one other attempt 6 or 7 years ago on the ball fields out by the high school. This year we actually made some a little bit higher up. We were originally making that snow for U14 championships, which we have here in March, and we were concerned that with melt out we may not have the depth that we needed for that event. And we were really lucky in that we made that snow, because otherwise our team that was preparing for U.S. championships and World Junior Trials and all those other events would have been running. And so we were able to push that snow out early, get those kids on snow, and have success through that. But I think it's a dream to actually have snowmaking on those trails, so that in a winter like this, people could go out and ski after work and get a workout, and the kids could go out and slide on snow on cross-country skis, just like we're seeing our Alpine teammates do. Thanks for the
Great. Thanks. Dave Stapleton.
Hello, welcome. Where do I begin?
Wherever you want. Red Brick School.
So, grew up here in Aspen. As Mike said, that we used to come right from the red brick schoolhouse. My first earliest recollection was for training was going to Little Nell, and a gentleman named Scarinson. I'm sure some of you guys know that name.
There's giggles, though they must have.
Was our first coach over on Little Nell, and I remember showing up there after school, and you'd hike up Little Nell, and you'd get 2 or 3 runs and call it a day. Then the ski club was donated by Ruth White, which was at the top of Mill Street, and there's an actual little old house there and a clubhouse. And offices were upstairs, and the ski rooms were down below, and we had our equipment there. So then we walked from the red brick up to the top of Mill Street, got our gear on, went up, he took 2 or 3, 4 runs, depending on what kind of shape you were in. Mark always got one more than I did because he was always faster than I was. But that's where we did our training, on the slalom hill. And we typically ran slalom because of the length of the hill wasn't really conducive to GS. But it was, you know, that was like the first real beginning of what I really recall as being part of the ski club here. It was a great time. We were there for quite a while. Eventually we got a rope tow there so we could get a few more runs in. Our hands got nice and strong at that time. We put in some water system, ski club did. Peter Lorne was there, he knew about that. And they actually hosed down the snow so it became very icy. And I think that gave us a real advantage to going to other places and skiing on ice compared to, you know, always just being in the ruts and such. My career was very long, so I started with the club when I was 8 years old, and I quit ski racing when I was 32. I never had a knee injury. I think I'm the only athlete in the world to never have soft tissue damage. Kristen was with me there until a month or 2 ago. Unfortunately, she did her knee in this year. But I raced with the club my entire career. I got really good when I was young, and I got good quickly. I remember when I was 14 years old, I was raced as an A racer, and I beat the entire CU ski team, who was the #1 college team in the country at the time. And it was a very long GS in Purgatory. It was like a 2.5-minute GS, which is highly unusual. Everybody hated me after that race. But, and then I went on and made the development team at a very young age, once again at like 16, and went to camps, development camps in Mount Hood with all the older kids, and I was like, you know, they're all drinking beer, and I'm like, you know, 15 years old going, yeah. But really good days, made the US ski team, made the B team, went on to win the NORAM overall championships when I was 17. Was named to the US ski team the next year as a World Cup racer. We went to a downhill camp in Purgatory, and I wasn't really a downhiller, I did it. You know, the first time I foreign the World Cup here in Aspen, I was 14. And if you can imagine coming over the top of Aztec at 14 years of age and seeing nothing but the town of Aspen, and you blink and then all of a sudden you're at the bottom. It was fun. But, so we were racing NORAMs, and we were in Sun Valley, and I did well there. I think I won the GS, and we had to go to this downhill camp. It was like, you had to go. And I'm like, well, I don't have downhill skis. They're like, I just show up. So we go there, it's in Purgatory, it's snowing like feet. We do the downhill camp, I win like all the training runs. I get home, I'm there at Christmas, and I get a phone call from the US ski team, and they're like, how'd you like to race World Cup downhill after Christmas? And I'm like, shit, why not, you know? I go, I just don't have any skis. And they said, well, just show up. My third downhill was Kitzbühel. So they kind of threw myself, Mike Monroney, who was with the club, he actually raced it out of Squaw at that time, but he grew up here, and there was Corey Murdoch. We were 3 young guys, and unfortunately Corey Murdoch crashed that year in Kitzbühel and blew up both knees and broke his face. And, Kitzbühel is like it's a nightmare on skis. Just to be able to go out on the starting gate is pretty spectacular in itself.
I gotta fill in there. Those 2 Aspen Ski Club kids racing Kitzbühel that year. Stapes is 19, Farney's 18.
Yeah.
You don't see that a whole lot now. I mean, they threw them right into the wire, and it was amazing what they endured.
So going on, you know, we made it through the first year. Mike had a great year, better year than I did. Kind of got used to the whole situation. Came back the next year and skied a little bit better, you know, finished Kitzbühel again, that was fun. Had some results in World Cup. My top finish was in the Lauberhorn, which is Wangen, which is the longest downhill in the world and the steepest slalom. And I was actually third in the combined there, one place in front of Andy Mill in 1980. That was kind of the highlight of my World Cup career. Went on to the next, well, that was the year of the Olympics that were in Lake Placid, 1980. And this was kind of a turning point in my career. When they said, okay, this year we're going to take the top 4 downhillers, and we're going to take the top 3 tech skiers. This is when the mayors were, one of the 2 best skiers in the world with Stenmark and Girardelli. And I knew I wasn't going to make the tech team, but I had a chance of making the downhill team. So top 4 U.S. skiers over the course of the season. Okay, I can do this, and I did. And I'm at home right before the Olympics, waiting for the phone call, and they say, "Well, I'm sorry you didn't make it." And I'm like, scratching my head, like, what the hell? Well, I found out that they took Phil Mayer in my spot so he could win the combined medal. And I'm like, well, that's the way it goes. That's, and he did. But it was really kind of soured me for a while. So that summer I worked even harder. I came back stronger, had a better year, and then things just kind of went south for myself and the ski team. And I said, you know what? Keep your team. I'm out of here. And I turned pro. And I didn't like the politics. The politics are very severe in kind of that era. Mark will touch on his stories also. But then I raced pro for the next 11 years, 12 years. It was, it was a fun career. It enabled me it taught myself a lot about myself. Perseverance. You learn how to deal with situations. You learn how to be a better person. You learn how to cope with whatever. To me, skiing, it's a team sport, but it's also an individual sport. And I think it taught me more about myself in longevity than anything else probably could have done for myself in my growing up years. I retired from pro racing finally. People were like, oh God, you're here long enough, it's time to go. And I moved back to town. I never really left her, but I came home and I said, what the hell am I going to do now? And I bought a ski shop, not knowing anything about running a ski shop, nothing about business. Survived. I owned my shop for 17 years and sold it. And now I'm just working for the ski club, trying to give back everything that I got from the club to make it a better program for all the kids that are involved in the program now. To me, it's very important for what life lessons that ski racing did for me. And that's my main goal right now.
Terrific. I have one question, and I know the whole amateur professional thing got really muddy until basically now Olympic skiers and World Cup skiers are making a living skiing, and that's the way it goes. If that had been more the situation when you decided to turn pro, might you have stayed longer with the ski team?
Possibly. They kind of soured me pretty bad. I was
Understood.
like, I did what they asked me to do, and I still got kicked in the teeth. I came back stronger the next year, and they wanted more. It's kind of hard to stay with a program that's constantly knocking you down, even though you're doing what they ask you to do.
Understood. And I know Mark can add some of that too. But let's start out. Let's go back to the red brick from you and your story is sort of.
He's missing one of the best parts of the
Okay. All right. Good.
Because we made sure we scheduled the last class of the day as being library class. So we actually got a block closer to the ski.
It was on Main Street then.
Right.
It was on Main Street, right?
We check in for library class, go down and get our book, wait till no one was looking, and we'd have boogie out of there. It would give us enough time to run up there, get our gear, and catch the old one lift and get one lift ride before we had to hike it down. Well, needless to say, our reading skills are pretty...
I've seen your writing. I disagree. You write really well. So.
But I'm actually not, I was not born here. I'm not a native.
I'm sorry. I thought you were.
Dad raced for the Canadian team, he's French-Canadian, in the 1950 World Championships here. But his life migrated. He was worked in the ski schools in Sun Valley, and then I was actually born in California. He was running a ski school there and was being apprenticed under Tommy Bolt to become a golf pro. And then Stein saw him at a ski show out there, and my mom cringed when she knew he was beating Stein, because she thought, oh my, she finally had a house, it was warm, it was groovy, and they ripped up, and he said, I'll come if there's a golf course. And they were just finishing that golf course. It was like, I got already 3 kids, and I need to go. I'll be at the ski school with you, but I need to be a golf course. So that's how we moved
So
here.
that must have been like
I was
early
a year old,
60s,
61.
or late, okay.
Yeah, and that was our intro into the valley. And but the ski club, I did my career, but I knew at the end of my career I wanted to give back to the program that gave me so much as a kid. And like Dave, I didn't have a college education, made the national team out of high school, and then competed the next 15 years. So suddenly I'm 32 years old, trying to figure out what to do. As Dave jumped into
We started at the
ski
same
shop,
race.
and I got in the restaurant business, knowing nothing about it, and in Bozeman, Montana. But at the same time, still working in the ski industry. But while I was opening that restaurant, I wanted to work with the ski club, and give back. And so I was athletic director for 3 years, and it was terrific. It was really fun to come back, but it was really interesting to see what I had left when we made the team in the late 70s, and then to come back in 93 to do that. And just the town had turned over 2 or 3 times since then. And so the chemistry, the dynamic in the program was completely different, and it was disconnected from the community. And one of it was so evident to me that needed to be mended again, and to bring the club back. It's so easy. I mean, we're in Aspen, Colorado, to view the Aspen Ski Club as this elitist thing, right? Why do I need to donate to that program, right? You look a little deeper, you see what it needs. So that was a big thing for me, was to reconnect it with the community. We did some fun events. We did a Gigantissimo event that was a top to bottom GS, and we had a 4-year-old and an 84-year-old. It was really fun. We had about 250 people that did it. So things like that to reconnect the new Aspenites to what the Aspen Ski Club was, because it is important. I think that's something that, and Mark, we just talked about that over coffee. Is that's an ongoing thing you can't take for granted. That's the lifeblood of this program. So I did that, and then moved on with more restaurants, and kind of have been disconnected with the program. But I will say this, that in the business world, we make it in all our restaurants that when the applications come in, if it's an alpine and Nordic skier, they go right to the top of the list. Because of they're the workers that you can count on them. They're primarily, I have to put the Nordic skiers ahead of the alpine skiers. They can really go deep.
I didn't have to suffer.
But
So you and me money after this?
but the program for everything I would have been able to do in life really was, the foundation began at the Aspen Ski Club. Right, I learned discipline. I had to work hard, how to manage my time, do all those things, which carried me into my amateur pro career, and then on to the business world. It's the same qualities, that I learned at 14. I still use today, and mentor and with the kids that are coming through our business now, and I think it's a responsibility that the club has and the staff. Because you're shaping, these young individuals, and you have such a terrific opportunity to help nurture that onto whatever they may do, whether it's school or whatever. And I was just so fortunate to have come through at a great time with great people. Peter being, a friend, mentor, and coach during my time, and that really shaped me and all my peers at that time, and I just think the world of the program, but it's hard work, and it's a labor of love for the staff. I know what they earn, and they're out there working their fannies off, and I really saw when I came back to work those 3 years of the program. But it's a different town, different families. You know, it was a refuge for a lot of those kids. I see them at the end of the day. You're not only being a coach, you're being first a parent. You know, and you had to provide, you know, before you could even get to help them, you know, coaching. And so it's even more of a responsibility that the staff. So I really compliment, you know, all, you know, the staff and what they're doing.
That's amazing. Thanks. Let's jump to snowboarding. Adam Longnecker. And
Those
what
are nice.
was- yeah. So basically, just from the conversation, we know that alpine skiing and Nordic to some degree dominated the ski club. It dominated the winter sports scene for so long. And then all of a sudden, there's a new kid in town, a new sport, and you were there. And let's let you address that. And what it must have been really difficult and hard to break through the wall that resisted this new sport.
Indeed. But before I start,
Okay.
I got to ask Mark. So if Nordic and Alpine resonates over the top, where do the knuckle draggers go?
They're CEOs. So.
I've eaten at his restaurant. It's very good. So before I talk about how I was part of bringing snowboarding into the AVSC, I'll start with my background here in the Valley and snowboarding in general. I started snowboarding. I grew up skiing and skateboarding, so snowboarding was obviously alluring to me. So Bozeman, I started snowboarding Big Sky and Ridge Bowl, and grew up snowboarding there, and started having an interest in half-pipe competitions. Freestyle was always really a compelling side of the sport to me because of the skateboarding background. So you get to live your skateboard dreams on a snowboard because you're attached to the thing. So I started competing in half-pipe competitions for a while. And when I moved here, I was really pleased to find a world-class half-pipe at Snowmax. And that's where I made a good friend with someone who had an established pro career in half-pipe competition. And he and I actually worked together to create standards for construction and maintenance of half-pipes, and then eventually train parks as well. And we worked with a local family, the Brucker brothers, out of the Salt, that had a welding business that had taken interest in building a half-pipe grooming machine. And so we partnered with them to help them develop this tool, which eventually the design was sold to a firm in Japan. I don't think it really went anywhere, but they saw Doug Waugh, who was a farmer who had built the pipe dragon, which is still used to this day, and it's come of age to the modern standard of the 22-foot deep super pipe that you see in all the competitions now. Back then, we were riding 11-foot deep half pipe at the most. We went. The design business took us to Eastern Canada, where we built an all-snowboard resort, and eventually that got open to skiing because. But we built everything out of earthwork in the summertime, a lot like what you see now at Buttermilk, where they built the earthwork for the half pipe to save on snowmaking. And then during that same era in the early 90s, I met someone who had started a team of snowboard racers called Team Tache. And we had discussed bringing a freestyle component into the mix with that team. And that's how the seed was planted for what would become the Aspen Valley Snowboard team when we integrated with AVSC. And during that first year, Andy Coughlin, a legendary snowboard racer from Vermont, came out to help me run the program. And we had a really fun crew, really small group, Many have gone on to, some are still here in the Valley, and I still snowboard with them. Others have gone on to professional snowboard careers. And the program just really grew after that first year. It was just so neat to watch it grow and become more and more popular. And these kids were destroying every competition we took them to. They were taking over the podium everywhere we went. So it was just so exciting to watch. And I got to build the terrain park at Buttermilk, one of the first terrain parks here in the Valley, and so I got to custom tailor it for them. And then we got to have contests here as well. It's just such a fun, and I've got to say thank you to these guys who have just been so instrumental in taking the program and making it what it is now. I mean, that building over at Highlands at the high school is ridiculous. I mean, what we used to be in, what was that, top of Aspen Street or something, where the snowboarders were back in this old ticket window shack, and when the snow would melt, and we'd have like this ice column coming down inside, yeah. I was talking to, I brought this is my second year in the program. I became director and brought a good friend from Pennsylvania out, Rick Shimpano, who's still coaching to this day. He's actually coaching for the U.S. team. He just got back from South Korea, and I spoke with him today, and we had some fun, anecdotes to share about back then. And he reminded me, we shared a house in the Salt, and he reminded me that I had set up a home office there and made a second line. And one of our athletes would call and leave like 40-minute long messages. But these guys were close to, we were pretty young, so we were close to their age, and they're still friends to this day. I keep in touch with lots of them, and they're all doing great. So it's just, it was from humble beginnings to podiums around the globe is, kind of essentially what it was.
What was it like, though, to have an athlete like Gretchen just kind of show up and pop?
And speaking to the success of that 90s era, those 90s era kids that were in the program, Gretchen, of course, her story being a silver medalist at the 2006 games, and she was so fun and delightful to work with. She was so focused all of the time, and really took all the training very, very seriously. She was one of those athletes that you just enjoy working with. And I enjoyed coaching athletes like her so much that I started coaching in the summer at Mount Hood and took on some other athletes that were professional at the time and were on the U.S. team that went to the 98 Olympics. And then I had others that were up-and-comers like Sean White, who I coached from age 8 to 11 in the summers. So it was fun, and that he had, back then he had a little heart-ridden problem or something like that, and his dad would carry him back up the half pipe on his shoulders, board still on, and just grab his, the board was, just carry him back up the half pipe. So the parents were super dedicated to his success as well, which is, has been spoken to already. The parents are a huge catalyst in why the programs at ABSC are so successful and why the athletes are successful. So, and we also sent Jason Smith, who's another local rider who went to the Olympics for border cross. He didn't medal, but he went in sixth was his finish with. Really cool. It's just wonderful to see all of the disciplines and all of their success and this amazing program. It's just world class. It's beyond belief.
Thanks, Adam. So there's a big hole in the middle of the panel, and we haven't addressed freeriding at all. We've got two athletes competing as we speak, basically, from the Valley and the third. So Mark, do you want to get up and talk about freeride team? And
I don't think I can do it justice. I think
well, okay, all right. Well, what can the people that we have here bring to a discussion about that and how that has sort of revitalized skiing and taking advantage of the facilities which were originally part of the snowboard competitions, and how do we get to these two young athletes in this valley, and they're competing as we speak. Rock, paper, scissors.
I mean, like you said, one aspect that we have in common, Alpine and freestyle, is our facilities are world class. We've had a substantial campaign that's allowed us to build on the Alpine venue snowmaking, and then for freestyle we have a on-hill airbag, we have a ramps and tramps venue at the ski club. We have a fly bed and a smaller trampoline in the backyard. So it's allowed us to have year-round programming for those guys and be able to do all this in their backyard and be at home. It's fairly recent that we've had all this. I think both of the guys that we're talking about come from pretty humble backgrounds, and it's again a testament of our staff and the parents and the kids in the programs, is that they've grew up with that crew and worked really, really hard, and then as they got older, these facilities became available to them. And I think Alex is the one who has a really cool video.
I was going to mention that. A video that went viral of his training.
He set up, yeah, and it's really awesome to see that kind of success from those kids. And hopefully they'll...
And having so much fun. Mm-hmm. That's what impresses me, is they're just having so much fun doing it. Not that the rest of them don't too, but it's that new energy, the camaraderie. Somebody I was talking to made the point that we're kind of, I think the X Games may have a lot to do with it, and having those pipes there. Go ahead. All right, I'll let you do it.
And I think that it goes actually back to snowboard and the facilities and the opportunity, right? The X Games didn't just come to Aspen. It's because the snowboard guys built world-class facilities both at Snowmass and Highlands, that when the X Games left Crested Butte and went to the rain, as someone else said, then they were looking for another home, and they were looking for world-class facilities with good opportunity. And all of a sudden, that the ski club and the work that the snowboard guys have done, it was there to be taken. Just like with the Alpine guys having the Roach Cup, ripping down Aspen Mountain in the 70s provided that same opportunity. So those little kids are able to, look at the X Games or look at World Cup skiers. But part of that has been because the club and the community has built these facilities that are at a world-class level, right? And I think that it's an interesting piece, but they all have to come together. I mean, those kids are inspired by the X Game athletes for sure. I don't mean to take that away at all. But the X Games didn't just come to Colorado or come to Aspen. They were created in Crested Butte, and then they needed a real half pipe and some actual features, and it turned out the East Coast wasn't it.
I sort of love the irony that in a place that resisted snowboarding for a while, and having one of the last alpine resorts that didn't allow snowboarders on it, became such a hotbed. And that you got to give the ski company credit, because they embraced the X Games, and I think and what it brought, and have sort of reinvented the image of the town and resorts.
And on that note, I think you really have to thank this Aspen Ski Company for everything they do for us as a club.
No question.
Without them, we are nothing. And they've been really instrumental in, especially, the last few years with the training center and what they do at Buttermilk and Snowmass, and allowing our kids to be on their hill, and they've really stepped up to the plate. It's really fantastic.
And kind of in the same vein, and it goes back to something that Mark said earlier, is that the town sort of stopped maybe supporting the ski club as much financially as it used to be. And there's a new relationship, I think, with some of the donors, and you're part of that, obviously. And do you think that it's changed? I mean, it seems like, as a nonprofit, that it's now being supported by some very important donors.
Over the last, ever since we started the whole idea of the Stapleton Training Center at Highlands, I was on a beach vacation and I got a phone call from Mark Hull at the time, and he's like, I wasn't involved with the club at that level at the time, and he said, "This is what we're doing. Would you like to be involved?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." And it kind of kicked into gear that fall. And one of our main donors is Sharif Zuki, who just absolutely loves skiing, loves ski racing. He has been fantastic in everything we've asked him to do. Another one is John Buxbaum, who, without those two individuals, we'd be dragging our feet for sure.
I think it's time to take some questions. How about a round of applause first for the... Great. Okay, so anyone, questions for the panel? Or, yes, right here.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment.
Okay.
I'm going to give you the microphone.
Yeah.
Just because since we're recording and you're so, oh no.
It's okay.
But I love Lois Semple's column, and this Monday he did a column about how the X Games was so crucial to getting this great exposure at the Olympics now. And he writes fun columns, and I just thought it was putting it in perspective.
Yeah, he's a great guy, I agree. Yes?
Thanks. You talked about the ski company's partnership and how that facilitates a lot of what you do, but what about the city of Aspen? I know you talked about the Nordic trails and making snow. Is the city a partner in that in all of the public trails?
Yeah, I mean, the city is responsible for the grooming, the maintenance, the mapping, basically everything. It's the city in partnership with the Nordic Council. The Nordic Council is its own 501c3 nonprofit that works with the city and the county, actually, because depending on where the trails are, they fall in different jurisdictions. But the city has numerous employees that are out there maintaining and was instrumental in the snowmaking itself this year. They were the ones that actually stepped up and helped us accomplish that this year, and will be an important partner going forward with that process.
And also, just the whole open space program, the collaboration between the city and the county, that's pretty remarkable, and maybe underappreciated, but I think something that certainly helps is the bus system and the access of the kids, and that it's all free from place to place, and you could start one place, like on a cross-country trail, and ski to another, and then catch the bus, and that's a huge part of improving, how these kids and all of us can get from these 4 different resorts and from our homes.
Yeah, it's not as simple as walking up from Red Brick.
It isn't quite as simple as walking up from Red Brick. Yeah. I have a question, and is there anybody else right now in the audience? Yes, Kelly.
I'm really loud.
Yes, you are.
I don't need that. I can't remember which one of you said it, but one of you said something to the effect of, we are getting kids to the Olympics, but not as many as we used to, or, yeah. So
as many as I want. Maybe.
Not as many as you want. So I guess my question is, for all the disciplines, how is the ski club looking at that now? Is that a stated goal? Are things changing to get more kids to the pinnacle? Or is it just kind of like, if we get them there, great, and kind of let whatever happens, happens?
I think it's probably, I'm going to jump in on us, but I think it's probably both. I think it's program specific. I think different programs have different focuses and different goals, and obviously depending on where the athletes are in their development, it's important that we focus at the right age, at the right, what we're trying to do. I could speak for Nordic, I can't speak for the other programs, but I can speak for Nordic and say that Simi and Noah are awesome, and now we have Haley Swerble sort of at that next step, but it is our goal in Nordic to continue to feed that pipeline and not just let it dry out. And I think that is really important, because I think that's what drives some of the younger kids. Some of the younger kids, it's all about participation, it's all about fun, like myself. I didn't make it to the games as an athlete, I made it as a coach. I didn't have the athletic ability to make that commitment that was necessary that some of these guys were making. I made it to a really high level, but I didn't have to get that next step. But I think providing the opportunities in the community, together will allow us to get there. And I guess it's my goal, vision, whatever, is to continue that pathway and that pipeline so that there is that, we can support the kid that just wants to have fun, but we can also provide the structure, the support, and everything else that's just as important for the kid that wants to make it to the top.
From the Alpine side, it's a challenge right now. It's difficult. I mean, there's 0.5% is going to make it to just the national team, you know, and the Olympic team is another 0.5% of that, you know. So to build a program just for that, you know, is silly, and you really don't need to. I mean, it was the ski club did a Hall of Fame dinner a couple nights ago, and it was so special because the director of the Alpine program came and was given a Lifetime Achievement Award. It was so cool to kind of learn more of his story and what his foundation was for the program then, because it's a lot of what the program is now, but what was in place then was the program fit for anyone. You know, a recreational skier to the best skier, right? It didn't need to be geared toward one or the other, and you hear it a lot. I've just heard a lot in the last 4 years. Well, it has to be more elite to the ones if we're going to really produce these skiers, and I disagree completely. I mean, the beautiful thing about this sport is you're spending so much time on chairlifts and whatever. It's nice to be with kids you hang out with at school, right? Not just the most elite person, right? I mean, we did, of course. Stapes and I were you know, really, really successful, but we enjoyed spending time with other people that were also enjoying the sport at the same time. It didn't take away from what we were giving up on, you know. And so I really believe in that, and I think ultimately it's you can lose focus trying to make such an elite, and I haven't seen it work, to be honest with you. And I don't know if this community is. I mean, we were lucky at that time. There wasn't a lot going on in Lahey. Ski racing is what every kid did. And we were lucky because we, like I said, we were fortunate because Andy was 8 years old ahead of us, and he made the national team. And we saw the road, and Whit Sterling, we saw those, they'd come back and train. So there was that link that kept us. And you know, our era, because of that, was still to this day the most successful. And there was 4 of us on the A and B team made up 25% of the team at that time. And I attribute completely to the program, right? And it wasn't because it was just this elite thing. And so when sometimes people ask me, God, should it be geared more because we got to produce more Olympians? No, it's they're gonna gravitate to the top wherever they are. And this program is as good as better than any in the program. And you know, the academies are very specific, you know. And I think that the kids here are learning that they're going to transition into life and be better human beings than we will. So that's fine.
And as a side note to that, you know, the Olympic ideal is a worthy to aspire to, but is the future of the Olympics with commercialism and security issues and the economics of it, maybe that's not the best direction to put our athletes towards. I'm throwing it out there. It's a tough question.
How many people
I don't know.
They're having a difficult time finding venues now. I mean, I think the curtain's been pulled back on the Olympics, and they've got to clean up their athletes.
Right. I mean, when I heard that there was a curling athlete that was doping, I mean, curling?
He can sweep better.
Man, anyway, I want to learn to curl. That's all I can say. You know, I want to learn to be a curler. So, any other questions from the audience? Guys, thank you so much. You're terrific, and that you were willing to spend some time and share your stories. I very much appreciate it. Another round of applause. Thanks so much.